Over the past 20 years, Crash Bandicoot has been one of the many faces of PlayStation. Being a huge gaming icon in the 90s, the marsupial has been showing his face less and less in recent years, and the Crash Bandicoot name has long but become a gaming legend. Sony's answer to Nintendo's mustachioed plumber, Crash followed suit, and usually less successfully, with whatever Mario did. When Mario went karting, so did Crash. When Mario had a party, Crash had a bash. When Mario played sports, well, Crash didn't, but I wouldn't have been surprised if he did. Throughout the 90s, Crash had great success, giving Sony fanboys a sweet bite of that mascot pie that Nintendo gamers had been tasting for years. By 1999, Crash Bandicoot had become a staple for Sony, their cash cow, having spawned 3 great titles and a moderately decent kart racer. Then, things all changed. Naughty Dog left to pursue newer and better things, leaving the name of Crash Bandicoot behind to be picked up by somebody else. Crash Bandicoot was never going to be the same again. Crash continued to sell well, but the quality of games began to decline. Publishers and developers came and went, adding their own flair to each title, but none of them could capture the brilliance in their work that Naughty Dog had years before, and by 2010, Crash Bandicoot was finished. Or was he? Recently, a Crash Bandicoot comeback was teased by PlayStation's Middle Eastern division on Twitter, which hyped up old fans of the series, but it really begs the question, should Crash Bandicoot return? For me, the answer is yes, Crash should return. He's a beloved icon and a big childhood memory. Crash Bandicoot was one of the great early PlayStation exclusives that helped cement Sony as a top gaming company. It was also the first major game that started Naughty Dog on their path of gaming enlightenment to become the development gods that they are. Crash Bandicoot wasn't as innovative as its rivals from a technical aspect, but it had its own identity. Crash Bandicoot was fun for all ages. It had an appealing factor to both casual and hardcore gamers. In the 90s, platformers were all the rave, and as 3D platformers made their way onto the scene, Crash Bandicoot shone through in a difficult genre. Developers were having to change and evolve with what games they were creating, and Naughty Dog did just that. They brought something different to the table that highlighted how good the PlayStation can be in the Nintendo-dominated 90s. Crash Bandicoot perfected simplicity, and how it can appeal to a mass audience as being both a pick up and play game, but with enough depth to satisfy a completionist itch with hidden collectibles and secret levels. Where games like Mario 64 offered up bigger, free roaming levels, Crash Bandicoot stayed rather linear, but to its advantage to allow for faster, more chaotic gameplay. From its initial launch in 1996, Crash Bandicoot has spawned a commercially successful franchise, shipping over 50 million copies worldwide, so why not keep a series like this going? Yes, it's had its ups and its downs, but what series hasn't? Crash Bandicoot is world renowned, and having the franchise stuck in limbo is quite frankly a slap in the face. Mario, Zelda, Samus, Ryu, Jin Kazama, Lara Croft and even Sonic are still going years later. How? Mario just celebrated 30 years. Continuing a franchise character isn't a bad thing. 3 of the names I mentioned are all Nintendo IPs and are still hugely successful. Nintendo strive on keeping everything familiar with their audience, so what's stopping Sony? Now, I know a lot of you won't agree with what I've just said, and I completely understand. Crash is old news now, he's had his time. Maybe he should just finish. It's like an old boxer or a retired sports star returning after a hiatus. You just want them to leave the sport, go out with dignity instead of coming back and being the person who returned but failed after a successful career. The problem is, Crash didn't go out with dignity. It was actually the complete opposite. Crash was the sports star who peaked early and pissed his career up the wall. The 90s were good to Crash, and then everything went downhill. A return to the PlayStation would not only give Crash a shot at redemption, but would also be good for the PlayStation. Since the release of the PS3, the exclusives for PlayStation have been aimed at more of a mature audience, with really only Little Big Planet being aimed at a younger audience. Crash Bandicoot would help fill this gap nicely, and with the reboot of Ratchet & Clank coming in less than 2 months, this might offer a big boost to a wider audience. Sony are never going to hold a candle to Nintendo when it comes to family entertainment, but there's no harm in trying. Crash is even featured in lots of spin-off games that were designed particularly for children and family entertainment. Crash Tag Team Racing, a racing game in a similar vein to Mario Kart, is still heralded as one of the best kart races out there, even though it's years old. Crash Bash, a surprisingly fun party game that lacked features compared to most party games, but ramped up the chaotic fun with your friends. And Crash and Spyro also had a couple of crossover games, where they ended up in each other's world fighting against the other's main antagonist. Even if it was for the Game Boy Advance, it still counts. There would be nothing wrong in having Crash come back just to star in spin-off games. For some people, crazy people I might add, the spin-off games were what they enjoyed most about Crash Bandicoot. For a lot of us, Crash Bandicoot has been a part of our video game lives. Whether it was in his early 90s games or the later PS2 games, he's been there. In a generation that is seriously lacking in good 3D platformers and swimming in indie 2D ones, Crash will be a welcome addition in the PS4 library, and maybe just the breath of fresh air that we need to get us back onto that golden age of gaming from the 90s.